Hello.
Hello.
And who's this?
I'm sorry, this is Sue Rose.
Oh, great to have you. Oh, there you are, Susie. You came back.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I thought maybe I cut all you guys off. Okay, so I've got this recording, so we'll probably get going in about a minute.
Okay.
It doesn't give me anybody's name, so I'm not sure who it is that will be talking or whatever. So make sure that you maybe share your name with us, unless it's popping up for you guys.
It seems to be popping up on my side.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
it is when you're talking. Bottom. Yeah. There we go. Well, we're going to get going, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. I'm glad somebody made it, because we were just sitting here chatting about how this has really been a very steep learning curve for me. Not only the syllabus for the class, but also the technology. I was pretty confident when I left the last semester that I was not going to have a problem with anything this semester, and I just kind of got blown out of the doors with everything that was changed. So thanks for your patience. And then I my husband had bypass surgery just a couple days ago, so I've been taking care of that and this. But all is good. All is good. So anytime any of you have a question, pop in there, and we're going to get going. I want to talk a little bit about legal writing. Legal writing in this class is really important, and it's something that you do need to be aware of. Okay, so can everybody see my screen? Okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Great. So a couple things. I've heard before a lot of friends of mine who were amazing writers with just regular English writing, and they get into the legal class and they just fail miserably, because you have to kick out anything that you learn from your English classes when you get into legal writing, and understand how you need to readjust your thinking and your writing. So what I've done is really just given you some very basic things that I want you to think about when you are writing. You're going to start writing some case briefs. I've seen it come through in some of the questions that have been presented when you met as a group. So just some things to think about. Keep your writing very clean and free from emotion, and kind of adding these little words that create more disconnect from where you're going. So facts, just facts, just facts, 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 facts. Get rid of legalese. I've given you some examples like herewith, heretofore, aforementioned, and just be very basic and promote clarity when you're writing, okay? So I give you an example. I'm in receipt of your correspondence. It's very formal. Go with, I received your letter. It's very clear, right? And very succinct. So be aware of that. Be very concise. Every word you write should contribute to your message. And omit extraneous words, shorten complex sentences, and above all, eliminate redundancies. And you probably have learned this in some of your English classes as well. So something, in a nutshell, something that I encourage you to do, when you're writing your case briefs, read it out loud to somebody, or read it out loud to yourself. If you want to read it out loud to yourself, tape it and then listen back. Listen carefully to what you are saying, and are you adding words that don't need to be there? If you can go and through your writing and cross out words that, again, are just redundant in the sentence, do so. You will not only help your legal writing, but you'll help your writing as you go forward in other classes as well. Okay, so look at the sentence that I gave you. I said, and I've italicized just a couple of the things that I wanted to emphasize. Due to the fact, I mean, a lot of us will say that. I mean, it's really common. that the defendant has not attempted to pay back the money. So drop down to the concise version, and you'll see that the concise version, the latter sentence, has gone from 44 words down to 18 words. And I know this sounds like, okay, why is she going there? It makes a huge difference in your writing and the message that you're trying to convey to everybody. So look at this first sentence. Due to the fact that the defendant has not attempted to pay back the money, blah, 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 we take appropriate legal action. Down to the very concise version that reads, since the defendant has not paid the $3,000 owed our client, we will file a lawsuit seeking reimbursement. Yeah, very clear, right? Okay, so does that make sense? Any thoughts or questions about that? It's just some tips as you're going through the class and you're getting ready to write your case briefs, because you do quite a bit of that. And then of course your questions that you're going to create. There were some really good questions that were written. I was going to share some with you tonight, but I had to do some other preparation for this, so I didn't put them up there. I'll talk about them next week. There were, and I made notes in my comments as I responded to the groups, very concise questions that are posed for the quiz. So these are great areas for you just to practice on, okay, when you're creating your questions. Okay, so I've given you some action words too, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on writing, but writing is it's a big deal, a really big deal. Okay, so action words. Weak, the defendant was not truthful. Better, the defendant lied. He lied. The witness quickly came into the courtroom. The witness bolted into the courtroom. Now, these are areas that you're not necessarily going to have to worry about, but action words are really good when you're writing an appellate brief and that type of thing, or some other types of legal documents. In a case brief, you're not going to use these, but there's some things that I just want you to be aware of. But the judge was very angry. The judge was enraged. Two very different perceptions that we create, correct? And then edit ruthlessly. Edit your writing, omitting unnecessary words and rewriting for clarity. I know I'm being redundant, but proofreading is very important in legal writing. I saw a lot of errors in the writing that the group assignments that were submitted, like punctuation marks, no periods at the end of sentences. So be very careful with your writing. Again, read it out loud to somebody else so that they can respond back to you and say, well, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand that. So if somebody doesn't understand it, you need to rewrite it. Be very clear. Okay, any questions? Okay, so you're going to start case briefs, and this semester they've increased the number of case briefs that you're going to write. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you so that you do a good job. Case briefs aren't difficult, but there are things that you'll lose points on that you don't need to lose points on. So I want to make sure that you have that information in front of you. And first, understand that a case brief is a very short summary. In law school, we live and breathe case briefs. We are reading cases all the time, and we're briefing them. Whether you're briefing them in a classroom and have to understand them inside and out, or briefing them as you students will be doing written. So again, it's a set of notes presented in a systematic way in order to sort out the parties. You're going to identify issues, and you're going to ascertain what was decided, and you're going to analyze the reasoning behind decisions made by the courts. It's one page, and case briefs are brief. They're not lengthy, so I'll share some things with you. So first, at the top, and there's a nice video that has been created for you to kind of follow, but I'm going to just really emphasize a couple of things. Name of the case and citation. Does anybody know what the citation is telling us? Did anybody read anything about that? What's the citation telling us? Any thoughts, ideas? So the courts have a systematic way of filing things. So if you were to, go to the library, you've got a way that everything's cataloged, correct? So that's how they catalog the case. So a state court, federal court, it could be by the type of issue, but more importantly, it's going to have to do with where it was recorded, the year, and then the number. Okay, so there's a lot of information that you can Google out there about citations. But what's important about a citation? Anybody kind of jump in there with what's important about a citation?
It tells us where we can go to find the precedent that we used that was used in the case.
Right. And so could there be more than one?
There could be, but
Yeah. Why would there be more than one? You have your initial case, right? Your initial claim. So if the claim were appealed, you're going to have another citation that usually follows it. Okay, so or the appeal is going to be in the front of that citation, and then it'll follow, the original citation will follow it. So understand what you're briefing. Are you briefing the appeal, or are you briefing the original case? So what happens? You have the plaintiff, and we'll go down to our sample problem here, and I can explain it a little bit better, but understand, because this happens when a case is briefed, I will have a student give me the citation and they've got it backwards. They've got plaintiff versus the defendant, and yet it's an appeal and it's actually defendant versus now the plaintiff. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if I open a claim against a company, so in my problem down there, we have Janet Lawson, and she sues Quality Market. Okay, so there's a case decided. All right, now Quality Market wants to appeal. They don't like the decision. Now they become the plaintiff, and Janet becomes the defendant. Okay, because now they are going to have the case appealed. So just be aware of the citation. Make sure the citation's there, because that is one of the ways that we can go look it up. Okay, literally type in that citation and it should bring it up. A lot of times students will just write the case, and we want the citation on there. So facts, who are the parties to the lawsuit? So when you write your brief, it's going to be in a written form. You're not going to do it in bullet form. It's going to be in sentence form, but it's going to talk about who are the parties in the lawsuit. What is their dispute? What are they arguing about? Again, only the facts. You don't need to tell us that she was wearing designer shoes and a beautiful purple coat that day, whatever it was. If it's relevant to the case, yes, okay. But we only need the facts that are necessary to understand the case. For instance, the time of the day the defendant was arrested is really not important, okay? We would maybe want to know the time of the day that he robbed the store. Okay, that might be important. If it was in the middle of the night, and we might have a visual issue, whatever it might be, So that would be relevant, but the time of the day that the defendant was arrested is not important. And so the facts is probably one of your more lengthy writings in a case brief. And then we come to the issue. And this is a question. What is the basic question that we are asking that's specific to the provision of the law that is to be decided? And this is usually to be answered by yes or no. Okay? And so the holding or the decision, what is the answer? So the issue is a question that we ask, you know, can the court do this? And the holding or the decision will be no or yes, and then we'll give the reasoning for the explanation. And that's really all that a case brief is. When you're briefing a case, I really encourage you to read it several times. Okay, read it several times, and try to jot some of these thoughts down as you're going through this. Like, what are the facts? Write them down, okay? And then you can put them together in your own words, okay? So let's just take a look at the sample problem that I've got here. So Janet Lawson, she's a famous pianist. She was shopping in the market. She slips and falls on the floor. The floor had recently been mopped by one of the store's employees, but there were no signs warning customers that the floor in that area was wet. As a result of the fall, Lawson injures her right arm and wasn't able to perform piano concerts for the next 6 months. And this is very realistic. Okay? Had she been able to perform the scheduled concert, she would have earned approximately $60,000 over that period of time. She sues the market for this amount, plus another $10,000 in medical expenses. She claimed that the store's failure to warn customers of the wet floor constituted negligence, and therefore the market was liable for injuries. Will the court agree with her? So as you're, you know, it may sound obvious what the facts are, but again, you need to go through there and identify what's going on here. So Janet Larson is the one that's bringing the suit, right? So therefore she's the plaintiff, all right? And Quality Market, against whom she's bringing the suit, is the defendant. So again, here in some of the cases that you're going to brief, you might have multiple plaintiffs or defendants. The events leading to this lawsuit are also fairly straightforward. She slipped and she fell on a wet floor, and she contends that Quality Market is liable for her injuries because it was negligent in not posting a warning sign of the wet floor. So the other piece of this is be sure that you're stating the facts. They should be accepted as they are given. So it's accepted that the floor was wet. We don't say, well, maybe it wasn't wet. So this is what we're given, and that there was no sign. So we don't want to make conjectures like maybe the floor wasn't wet, or maybe an employee was getting a sign to put up, or maybe somebody stole the sign. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to question anything. These are the facts, okay? And then you can begin to analyze it, and we have to determine what's the legal issue here. Now, in a case brief, it's going to tell you what the legal issue is. So you just need to understand it and be able to return it in the form of in your own words, in the form of a case brief. So make sense? You're given everything. You don't have to really come up with anything, because all of that's going to be given to you in the case that you're reading. You're just briefing it and sharing that information with us. Okay? Sometimes the rule of law is a little bit of a challenge to figure out, but again, read through it. It'll be in there what the rule of the law is, meaning what the court applied. What rule did they apply to come up with a yes or no answer? Yes, Quality Markets was liable. What rule of law applied to that? Why did they say that they were liable? Okay? And so there's going to be a background to that. There's going to be, regulation. And you've been reading about some of that, through the court system and legal process this first couple weeks. Okay? But I wanted to kind of give you a heads up on case law, because you're going to get into that. And briefing cases is really fun, because now you're going to start to read some cases, and you're going to be able to take a look at them and return to, in the form of a completed case brief assignment for evaluation or grading. Okay? And I want you to do a good job. So don't get too stressed out about it. watch your writing, because we will mark down for writing issues. Okay, that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about writing, because that's just as important as it's just as important as understanding, you know, the rules and the issues and the facts. Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, so quickly, we're gonna do a quick quiz. So what I'd like you to do is I want you to shout out who knows what the answers are to this 1 through 5. And then we're going to talk a little bit about jurisdiction.
Okay, ready now?
Yeah, so just go for it.
All right. Well, number 1, isn't it the tax? Or is it tax?
Oops. Did I lose you? Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I thought I cut you off.
It looks like you muted.
Okay, so go ahead. Who can give me some answers to the first question? Sorry, I was getting something.
The power to regulate interstate commerce.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I think somebody said to tax.
Mm-hmm. And the power to spend for the general welfare.
Great. Okay, so how about this is an interesting one, because this applies to the Affordable Care Act that was passed a couple years ago. So state the general test for determining whether a tax is constitutional. Any thoughts? So a tax may serve to regulate an activity. However, the more the tax acts as a punishment rather than as a source of revenue, the more that it's likely to be judged as an invalid penalty. Okay, and that's how, kind of in a nutshell, ACA got through, Affordable Care Act got through, is it was created, it was viewed as a tax when, I don't know, at the essence of it, I think it was a penalty. But anyway, all right, so you guys learned quite a few things about the courts this week and last week. What are the 3 main levels of courts in the federal system? You remember?
Are we talking about the Supreme Court? Is like that's one level, the highest
That's
level?
one of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. You're right. You're on the right track. Mm-hmm.
Court of Appeals.
So you've got, well, circuit courts and district courts, just in a
Okay.
broad sense. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, you know, it's important that you understand those. And there's some, in the textbook, there's some great visuals of mapping of the courts. I would encourage you to make a copy of that. In fact, I've got a good one. Maybe I'll try to find it and send it to you that I've used in past classes and send it to you. And just hang on to it so that you can see how things are mapped, because that makes a difference in jurisdiction. And I'm going to jump to that just really quick. So with jurisdiction, it's the court's official power to make a decision. And people can sometimes get hung up on subject matter and personal jurisdiction. And so know that both of those apply to some degree. So we're trying to make a legally valid decision. A court has to have both subject matter, the power to hear the kind of case the lawsuit involves, and personal jurisdiction, power over the parties involved in the lawsuit. And people get hung up on the two different, the subject matter jurisdiction and personal jurisdiction, and then those roll into some other jurisdictions. So try to look at that as it applies to the courts, and it'll become a lot clearer. So before we go to some of those examples, let me just jump down to jump back to number 4. Describe the difference between the functions of a trial court and an appellate court. Any thoughts? In a jury trial. So in a jury trial, what do we have going on?
You have witnesses and testimony, and in an appellate court, they don't review witnesses or anything. They just look at.
Good. Yeah. Wendy, I appreciate that. That's in a nutshell what it is. So in your jury trial, the trial judge, he's interpreting the law and he instructs the jury on the law. Okay? And then he or she makes the rules over the evidence and any motions. And in a non-trial jury, the trial judge will also assume the jury's role and decides factual disputes. And then in an appellate court, they don't retry the case, as Wendy was saying, at all. We don't redo and relive the whole thing. It just reviews what the lower court did for errors. Okay?
I have a question real quick.
Sure.
Why would someone make an appeal to go to a higher level, like in the court system? Like, wouldn't they think that the decision would just be the same? Like, why would they think it'd be different if you move up?
Does anybody want to answer that?
I think it's because you can get different judges or even a different jury that may be on your side a little more, that you can be able to choose between those things.
That's a good response. So what are we trying to interpret? We're trying to interpret the rules and apply them to what occurred in that case. And so most often, the only reason something is going to go to an appeal is why. So if I'm filing the claim.
It's because they think that the law has been interpreted wrong.
Correct. I mean, it's as simple as that, you know, or there's not much more to it. However, Wendy, I think you guys had in your questions, you presented a good situation. What happened in your question that you guys worked on as a group and you presented? What was yours about?
It was about the death penalty in California being done away with.
So how does that apply? Could it apply right here? So some things changed. So some rules changed. Right? What was the correct answer in that? We're going to give away a quiz question here.
I'm trying to remember.
Which is okay.
I don't know. It was about substantive law versus procedural law. The procedural law changed, so their sentencing had to change. I'm not sure.
So, and what it had to do with was the death penalty, and so he was appealing the death penalty, I think is what, if I remember it correctly. I don't have it up, but so there could be something that changed where you could go back and appeal it. But as Wendy said earlier, most likely it's because the law has been interpreted contrary to what you think. Okay, and there's plenty of cases where the appellate court they've changed the decision. You know, it has not been interpreted correctly. So that's what happens.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So, okay, this is a good one because we talk a lot about mediation and arbitration. What's the most important difference between the two of those?
I think mediation, with mediation, the person just suggests ideas on how to work out, and with arbitration, he makes the final rule.
Yeah, good job. Mediation cannot force, a settlement. Arbitration can. And arbitration, in essence, really substitutes for, a court trial. And you'll probably see arbitration clauses written into a lot of contracts, a lot, because the organization or the individual who is creating the contract, they don't want to go to trial, and so they're going to do anything and everything they can to try to eliminate that. So putting an arbitration clause is how they can do it. I mean, and it happens a lot in employment, contracts, independent contractor contracts as well. So just a couple questions on jurisdiction here. Jurisdiction is actually kind of fun because there's a lot of different ways that it can go, but here's a good example. So that in law school, I tell you what, I think the folks that are writing a lot of our textbooks and our quiz books, they come up with the weirdest names. They're I don't know, I think they're bored or something. But anyway, Allnet lives in Arizona and is involved in a traffic accident in Arizona with Marlo, a Texas resident. Allnet could file a lawsuit in Arizona State Court, which could have jurisdiction because the accident took place there. Every state has a motorist law that confers jurisdiction on its state courts to hear cases involving all traffic accidents involving the state. But Allnet could also file in Texas, where Marlo resides, because state courts almost always have jurisdiction to hear cases filed against defendants who live in the state. But could Allnet file the claim in Florida?
Yes.
This is a big no, right? It's, yeah. If you're saying no, correct. It can't. It's as simple as that. Okay. So you'll see some of these questions, these types of questions on the exams, and know that, okay, I better be careful because in the past all exams have been open book. So, but I think all of your exams are open book now, correct? I hope so. I'll double check that. But have jurisdiction examples out there so you can relate to those and reference those when you're taking your exams. So Elaine, a New York citizen, sues Officer Kramer, also a New York citizen, for violating her civil rights by falsely arresting her. Okay, so listen here. Elaine bases a suit on a federal statute and asks for damages of $10,000. Is this a federal case?
No,
Why not?
because it has to be more like 70,000 or more or something like that.
Good try. A federal case is a federal case. Okay. Well, I should say you've got concurrent jurisdiction here. But be careful because there are some questions on the exam that'll throw you for a loop there. Federal jurisdiction is very specific, okay? Because the case is based on a federal statute, the New York Federal Court has jurisdiction even though they're citizens of the same state, and she seeks less than $75,000, okay? So those are some interesting twists. So just when you're making your notes on jurisdiction, make sure they're complete. There's a lot of great examples out there on jurisdiction that will help you as you're going through some of your exams on jurisdiction. And if you want, we can certainly cover it a little bit more. I didn't go into a lot of detail tonight. I just didn't. There's a lot that you can read up on and help yourself. So what kind of questions can I answer for you guys? anything that I can share with you or cover with you as we get going into the class? Are you kind of finding your way around in everything? A little bit more comfort level with the course? Any questions? Quickly on your group assignments, I think 90% of you did a fantastic job. Know that you have to create, you create a question and then, or you create a case, an issue, and then you create questions that are specific to that issue. And keep them brief. But I had some that came back that there were no questions associated with the issue. And so you're creating a quiz as a review for the rest of the class. And overall, everybody did a wonderful job and some great questions out there. So I do apologize. This week I wasn't able to get everything into the system. So I take your questions and I load them into the review questions, but I was unfortunately working with another situation within that I couldn't get to it. So there's some good questions in there that will help you with review, but a lot of you won't see your questions posted. Next week you will from your groups. So.
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Yes.
I feel like as soon as I've started reading the book, I don't know, even like as I started reading through the first chapter, I feel like I was behind, like just the jargon and things that it's hard to, I don't know, it's kind of dry reading. Like it's good, like I'm trying to take notes and fill out your unit one study guide, but what are other maybe resources or other, or I don't know, like I've just been Googling a lot.
And that's okay, because there's a lot of good information, and sometimes it's quicker than finding it in your book. However, your textbook has got a lot of great information, and if you will take the time to in Emerson, one of the reasons that I like Emerson's is they've got if you go through, if time is of an issue, go to this is something that they taught us in law school also, was like they have these pages you should remember, or they've got these boxes around some of the points. I would like go to those and use those as my high points and then kind of work backwards. Just so that from a high level you've got, and then like we talk procedural law and substantive law. Those are important things to understand. The court system is important to understand, because it all starts to roll down as we go through the course. If you looked at the syllabus and then the outline for the week, it looks like there's a lot there. But if you'll go to, like, I noticed, the list for the first 3 weeks was just really lengthy. It's like, oh my gosh. I mean, we would cover in one semester one very small portion of that in law school. So I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so badly for you guys and all the studying that you must have. But you don't have to dive into it as detailed as we did. So maybe what I'll do for the next 3 weeks is try to really highlight some things that I think would be very relevant for you as we're going through, and then that might help you so that you're not swimming so much and you can really focus on certain points. Would that help?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, there is a lot. There really is a lot, and because we now have more control over the exams, I think that might be very helpful for you and really help you focus in on some of the areas that are probably most important for that 3-week learning period. So there was a lot to learn these first 3 weeks. And we did not have an office hour last week, so next week, you know, we'll start working in, I think next week we start contracts. And so that's a really important learning area for you guys, regardless of where you're going to go. You're going to use contracts in everything that you do in your adult life, your you know, your professional life, your personal life. So contracts are a really good thing for you to study. So we'll dive a lot into contracts next week and what that looks like. Case briefs. When you're looking for a case to brief, try to relate it to what your learning is for that week. Okay, I'm sure I think you guys have 2 cases that you're working on, correct? Didn't the syllabus give you 2 very specific cases? Am I wrong? Or do you guys get to pick what case? Again, the syllabus has changed and I haven't looked at that one yet. So do you get to pick the cases you get a brief?
No, I think they just gave us one case. Bette Midler versus a car company, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's your next assignment? Is that the case that you're going to brief for your next assignment? Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Okay. All right. So again, I apologize. They've completely changed our syllabus, and so I kind of waltzed in here, my bad, thinking that I had it all under control, and I didn't. So I've had to not only have I didn't teach last semester, and so I came back in here and I learned 3 I had to learn, and then they moved all of our discussions over to Google Communities, which throws you through a loop because I learned you could control it a lot better and it was organized, where Google Communities, it's a duplication of entries, and so I was like, oh good God, all this extra work that they make you do. So I'm griping, so that's not very nice. I like to be very streamlined, and when we got this great system, I like to be able to use it so it's very advantageous for you guys, and technology works to your advantage. So I had to kind of back up and start all over again. But I'll take a look at the case brief that is. So is this case brief due next week? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, at least you have the case brief outline, and you've got the elements of it that I want you to focus on. But I'll have to go look and see what the rest of the case briefs are for the rest of the course, because I hope they're relevant to the learning that you're going to go to. Has anybody read the case with Midler and Ford yet? Don't have any idea what it's about? Susan, you're nodding your head. Can you share with us?
Yes. The company in question, they asked initially for her to sing a song because they were doing some sort of a advertisement, and she did not want to. And I think they got permission to use the song that she sings anyway. So they went and sought out a backup singer from her that worked with her previously, and they specifically asked that she imitate the way Bette sings. And she did so very, very convincingly that anybody that listened to it would have thought it was Bette Midler instead of this backup singer that ended up singing it. And so, and Bette was suing them, but they went through all these different reasons why she couldn't sue them, and because it wasn't about the song and it wasn't about this other person singing. It was about her actual identity was kind of being stolen in that way. Her voice, her identity.
Okay.
Out of it.
So this will be something great that we can talk about next week. Really good point when you're talking about issues. So this might be a very interesting one as you're trying to determine what the issue is and how they ruled. So, probably a fun case to brief as you're looking at relating the two together. So, yeah, read it and read it and reread it and reread it. So that's what case law is all about. And I will tell you this, before I started law school, I was a speed reader. I mean, I could read something and remember it and go through it. When I got to law school, I had to like put the brakes on, and it was read word for word for word for word and slow down so that I could understand what I was reading, basically. And yeah, you're right. I mean, some of it's really dry, and I'm like going, okay, my gosh, am I going to be able to stay awake through all of this? But one of the things that I did is I looked at where I was going with this. So if we looked at this case with Midler versus Ford, where was this going? And sometimes that adds another element of interest to what we're learning. So sometimes that's what we have to do with law. And so we're looking at the court system. Those court systems can be kind of boring as we're looking at what that tier is, but when you look at it and you understand it and you start to apply it to how the different courts will take control and be able to make a decision for a certain issue, then it starts to add an increased interest. And so I would encourage you to kind of take a look at that. Where are you going with that week's learning? And it might elevate the interest a little bit to take some of the dryness out of it so that you can, kind of pique the desire to study a little bit more and relate and tie things together. So we'll try to work on that next week for our office hours so that we can put a little bit more interest in where we're going with it. So any other questions that I can answer for anybody?
I do have a question. I'm having a hard time connecting with my group. I'm in group 5. I don't know if anyone here is on group 5, but I'd like to be connected to there. Susan, you are?
Hi, Susan. So thank you. And that's actually, I'm glad you asked that question. So let me just share this with you. In the business world, we are going to work virtual a lot. We're going to work in groups a lot. And you're going to work with people that do not participate. So I want you to think how you're going to apply this learning situation to potentially that element that you might step into the business environment. I tell my groups, you need to continue, right? If people aren't responding, that's why I like the Google community. That is the one thing that I do like about that. And I ask you to communicate with your group in the Google community. If you don't want to videotape your discussion, I'm okay with that. All right. But at least have some discussion when you're going to meet. And if you do use the Hangouts on air to meet, I don't mind if you don't record it. It's great if you do. I don't listen to the whole thing. But if somebody's not participating, you can't waste time on trying to track them down. Okay? But use your Google community, that group that you've been assigned to, and say, all right, guys, this is when we're meeting. And if they can't meet your time, let's say you and Susan, you agree, you two are the two that are communicating, and you agree that you can meet at 5 o'clock on Monday, and nobody else can, but the two of you can, and the rest of the group is just so spread out that you can't meet, then put an agenda together and say, this is what we're going to discuss. Who wants to contribute to this part? Who wants to contribute to this part? They can get that back to you in the form of a written communication, and then you incorporate that into your decision. So that's working virtual. Initially, this class, they put together groups in times. And I've done that before, and it still doesn't work, because even though you've got this window of time, somebody still has a conflict at a certain time on a certain day. And so I give the same advice and same guidance. If you've got the majority of the group, whether it's 2 or 1, can meet at this time, that's when you meet, but make sure you just put an agenda out so everybody's getting fair opportunity to contribute. If they don't, you have to continue on because you have an assignment due and get it posted, okay? And then I go back into the communities and I'll look to see who's contributed. And then I think in your evaluation, you also will say, I think you evaluate the participation. A lot of people will have excuses why they can't meet, but there's no excuse why they can't contribute. Okay, so if they can't meet, I get it. And you guys, you just got to work around it. So is that fair? I mean, do you feel like you guys can work with that? But do post it in Google Community. Say, all right, this is when we're going to meet. This is a decision we've made. And if somebody comes forward and says, I can't meet them, okay, this is our agenda. Can you please contribute with this? And then that can be your assignment if that's what you'll take, and go from there. Okay. The first week, I kind of give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and it was kind of a free pass, except for those that absolutely did not participate at all in the Google community, or were pretty much AWOL. If you did not accept the invite into Google Community and didn't, I don't feel that there was any way that you could participate in the group, you probably didn't get any points. You know, I feel that when you work virtual in the business environment, this is a good opportunity for you to overcome conflict and be creative in trying to get your group together so that everybody's contributing. Because everybody is a positive contributor. They've got good things to share, and, you know, they help lessen the load. So we want everybody to be a part of it. So does that make sense? Okay.
I think I would say,
Any other question?
everybody wants to contribute. I mean, at least for me, it's just hard to get involved, and like, I don't want to step on any toes or anything like that. And so it's just like, of where to step in at what times.
Well, you know, Quincy, I don't think you're going to step on toes. I think a lot of it is going to depend on where the group's going with things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, hey, you know, I would like to do that. I'd like to hear from some of the other groups that are having some success with how they're meeting and how their groups are working. Can anybody share and talk about that?
I can share my experience.
Okay.
Well, like, I tried all week to contact my group and nobody answered. And so until the last day and last moment, someone answered. Got together and did the group meeting. And we invited other people in the Hangout, and someone replied back and he joined 30 minutes later to the group. So instead of being only 2 people, we end up being 3 people discussing the topic of the group meeting.
So in the end, it worked for you.
It worked, yeah.
Yeah.
It took a while, but it worked.
So I will say that, you know, a lot of people were on the ball and got into it quickly, and they probably didn't, you know, they had themselves very well organized. It can be very frustrating for a lot of the folks that come in at the very end. So you know, I sent emails to try to get people into the Google community. So we had our full groups, you know, active and engaged with one another. So I'm glad that that worked for you, Elvis. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We were going to do
anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
No, I'll just say we started only for 2 people, me and the other Jacob. Like, we just started all along, and we were going to submit it only with us. But then later on, someone read the invite and joined in later.
Okay, good. And I will say this, that there were some late arrivals, and we did move some folks around so that they were able to get into some groups that would work with some times that were better suited. And I'm fine with that. I don't have any problems with that. I try to be as accommodating as possible with everybody. I don't want big groups though. So I know, Wendy, you had a pretty good, your group was pretty active and working together. Anything you want to share with us?
You know, we did have a pretty easy time getting our group together. We did
Good.
have to be creative, and we had to meet at, I think it was 7 a.m. my time. You know, in between carpools, but it worked.
Well, that's dedication. I appreciate that very much, and I hope the rest of them did too. You know, and I think that's something that when we're working in groups, the other thing we have to remember is, you know, we got to work together. We got to figure it out how we're going to do it, and you know, that's how they did it. I don't mind if you guys, if it's a struggle, because there's a lot of things that are going on. You know, not only do you have school, but you have families. You know, your callings and everything else that's piled in there. So I want you guys to make it work with your groups, and I'm very flexible how you want to do that. It's got to work for everybody. Quincy, to answer your question, don't be afraid to step in and say, you know, I would like to do this. This is really interesting to me. Would this be okay if I did this? I don't think anybody is going to be opposed to doing things like that. And maybe one week one person does it and the next week somebody else does it. I don't know. It's, you know, and submits it or whatever. So.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Like for future references. Group we meet before I submit the personal example. For us to submit that, and at the end I end up not submitting at all because I thought this is after the group meeting, doesn't count. So I don't know if it for future reference counts if I submit the personal example after the group meeting.
So Elvis, can you say that again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that very well.
So our group meeting was before submitting the personal example. And so I didn't submit the personal example for the group meeting. We just, because it was after the group meeting, and I thought count anymore. According to the syllabus, it's like you submit the personal example first, and then you meet with the group.
And so what is your question to me?
It's like for future references. If I didn't submit the personal example before I meet with the group, should I submit it later after the group meeting, or does it count?
No, it is a group assignment. I think that's where you're going. So if you didn't submit it with the group assignment, should you submit it by yourself, correct? Is that what you're asking me?
And like the course requires you submit a personal solution first. You submit a personal solution, and then you meet with the group. What if
a personal solution?
Yes, that was required. You submit the personal solution, and then you meet with the group and discuss the solutions you have. Since
so you're coming up. Okay, it's still a group environment and a group discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think what you just need. You're in a group now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you guys are on the right path. So what it's saying is you need to think about it, and you need to come up with you know, some thoughts about what you're working on, and then present it to the group. Okay. Yeah. So you're on the right path. You're going there.
Okay.
Okay.
I think what Elvis might be asking is, before you meet with your group, you are required to submit your personal scenario that you're going to bring to your group for discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And is it okay to submit it after you've met with your group, if you neglected to submit it before your group meeting?
But you're submitting that to the group. You're not submitting that as a personal assignment, correct?
No, it's a personal assignment.
That's being graded?
That part I don't
Apparently,
know.
yes.
Well, you know what, Elvis? I guess I'll have to find out because that.
Yeah. I didn't submit it last week since it was after the group meeting, so I don't know if that counts or not.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you asking the question, and thanks, Wendy, for clarifying. So let me look at that, okay?
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the personal solution, okay? But I'll get back to you about that.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted for future references, you know.
Did anybody else submit that? Where did you submit the personal solution?
Well, it's not really a personal solution. It's your example scenario for your topic without questions, though.
Okay, and where did you post that?
It's an
Wendy, where did
iLearn.
you?
Right.
Wendy, did you post it on iLearn? Wendy, did you post it on iLearn? Did anybody post it on iLearn?
Yes, it was one of
It
our
has a-
assignments.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you know, I think I remember that. Let me look at that, Elvis, and see if I'll accept it. I did accept some late assignments. The university has taken a very strong stand on late submissions, but there was a lot of jockeying going on and a lot of challenges that we had the first couple weeks. And so I was fairly lenient with late submissions so that everybody could get going. And also because of some of my shortcomings with getting going in the class as well. So, yeah, I'll take a look at that and get back to you. Okay, Elvis?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Did anybody else not get that assignment posted, or did everybody else get it posted that's here with us tonight? Yeah? Okay. All right. I'll look at that for you, Elvis. Thank you. Anything else tonight that I can share with you or you have questions on? I appreciate you're all here. And I tell you what, we got started kind of disjointed and we didn't have an opening prayer. So could we have a closing prayer? Could I have a volunteer for a closing prayer tonight? And thank you for joining us.
I can say it.
Okay, thank you, Josh.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this chance we had to meet together as a class. We pray that we'll continue to do well in our studies and that we'll to continue to learn more about business law. We pray that we're able to find strength as we sleep tonight and have a good day tomorrow. We love thee and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Amen.
Everybody, I appreciate you joining us tonight, and I appreciate your patience with me this last couple of weeks. It's been a little bit of a challenge as I was trying to overcome some things. So have a great week, and I will always try to have our office hours on Tuesday night. That'll be pretty consistent, and that way we're prepping for the quizzes and the exams, so we're ahead of everything is my hope. So thank you again. It was really a pleasure to meet all you and to be with you tonight. And I appreciate everything that you bring to the table and your thoughts and your comments. So have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.